Hello there, whatever day it is. Let's start in the United States of America. Change in consumer credit by category. Right, a couple of interesting things in here. The top one in blue and rising is student loans in blue. And we can see it went from absolutely nowhere in 2008. It wasn't even on the charts. And now it went up through 50, these are thousands of millions, that's a billion. It's gone up through 50 billion, 100 billion, and it touched 150 billion, and now it's 125 billion. That's a lot, isn't it? Anyway, that's the most of the upping, obviously, change in consumer credit. But it's interesting to note now that revolving and non-revolving, obviously with student loans taken out, are now positive as well. Not much positive, but they are adding, which is the way it had to be. It couldn't stay negative, I don't think, not in the United States of America, but it doesn't mean it wouldn't plunge negative again if the United States is pulled into a recession by the rest of the world. Right. Just information, this one. From Reuters, Governor Rick Perry said on Monday Texas will not implement an expansion of the Medicaid program or create a health insurance exchange, placing the state with the highest percentage of people without insurance outside key parts of President Barack Obama's signature law. The announcement makes Texas the most populous state that has rejected the provisions. Some 6.2 million people are without health insurance in Texas, or 24.6% of the state population, 1/4. The highest percentage in the nation. California has more people without insurance, but a lower percentage. In the United States of America, going back to the late 80s, this chart is very simple. Although it only goes to 2009, I don't think too much has changed. For all households, all federal taxes in 2009 now amount to 17.4%, the lowest they've been ever. Income taxes down to 7.2%, the lowest they've been ever, or at least since this chart in the late 70s. The important thing here is that the government isn't sucking the taxes out and ruining the economy. The government is letting the taxes stay in the economy, but still the economy is not booming. The only thing that's booming is the government deficit, and the government deficit is obviously booming because the taxes aren't being paid in there to balance out the deficit. I've got this gold chart thing up because it's pretty, basically, and interesting in its own little way. The main bulk of this is gold demand. The main bulk of gold demand is really still jewellery, although it's been balanced out by bar and coin investment now, but it always used to be jewellery back in 2002. But you can see jewellery has skinnied out now as the price has gone up and basically people can't afford the jewellery anymore. The next across is industrial in orange above the green, and that's basically stayed the same as we would expect it to. Bar and coin investment has really increased since the Great Crisis began in 2007. 2008 was a very big jump, and it's kind of maintained and maybe even increased its percentage, bar and coin investment. The yellow above that is ETFs, which really stretched out in 2009 but have skinnied out in 2010 and 11, but they're not selling. The ETF has risen up and it's got that block of gold in there, and people are investing in and investing out, and if anything it's still increasing but not as much as it did in 2009. The official sector is interesting as well. The official sector is central banks and their reserves. You can see at the start of the chart for 2002, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8, central banks were net sellers of gold. But 2009 was about neutral, and 2010 and 11 central banks of the world are now buying gold again. And it is that buying of gold by the central banks of the world which is pushing the demand up above where it has been in the past. So it's actually now the authorities are pushing up the price of gold with their central bank buying, mainly from the BRICS, obviously. Right. Over in Europe, Italy shouldn't be forgotten. So much going on about Spain at the moment. Industrial production in that blue line, you can see from 2010 to now, it's just going down and down and down. It's had a seesaw up in its last little iteration, but it's down by minus 10%, and it's not looking good at all. And the orange is the GDP reading, which tends to follow the industrial production, so we can expect bad things again from Italy. And if you're not the equivalent of working very efficiently, not getting paid much in, you struggle to pay your debts. And obviously in Italy the debts are held by the government. In the United Kingdom, the profile of recession and recovery. This is kind of like a Joker chart, but for general GDP in the UK. Previous recessions, or depressions, no, strong recessions, and they've linked them together, which is good. The Great Depression, 1930-34, in red, lasted 4/12 of 48, 4 years before it got back up to where it came from. This is the similar idea to the Joker chart. 1973 to 76 was up in 2.5 years. 79 to 83, that was a double dip, but they've linked them together here, and that took 4 years over that period. 1990, not so bad, 2.5 years. This Great Recession is still going on and is still 4% below where it started at the start of the Great Recession, and that is now 4.5 years in. Very bad. In the United Kingdom, house prices are holding up and even increasing. The only sticking up one there in London, because the rich of the world are buying in London to get their money out of their countries, and for various reasons. It's just deemed to be a civilized place to go, and so London prices are being held up by incomers coming in and buying houses there, but all the rest across the board, house prices down, most down in the West Midlands there, United Kingdom. Right, tricky, we'll finish off with China again. Now, like yesterday, we're finished with China. It's a bit tricky. In fact, China's a lot tricky, but we'll see if we can get some more from this and start building a picture. So RMB, internationalization, a myth, question mark, without a tilde. See that? Could move that question mark across a bit. Anyway, don't believe the hype about internationalization of the renminbi. That's the message from Yo Yong Ding, 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 an academic settle down, Nick. An academic economist and advisor to the Chinese government, who has just published a paper titled Revisiting the Internationalization of the Yuan. So Yuan, RMB, it's all talking about the Chinese currency. And the PDF isn't that enormous that he's written, but don't bother. Yu takes a machete to the great expectations of banks like Standard Chartered and HSBC, which predict that the renminbi will rapidly become an important currency in global trade and investment. Beijing's plan for renminbi internationalization is flawed, with many missing link and wishful thinking, says Yu, who was formerly a member of the Monetary Committee of the People's Bank of China. Taken from the PDF, most researchers will assume that the PRC's case, that's the People's Republic, it's the Chinese Central Bank. If the yuan is used for settlement, it must also be used for invoicing. But this is simply wrong. Investigations show that while indeed many PRC importers No, that's just PRC, People's Republic of China. It just means China. So many Chinese importers use the yuan for settlement. Most of them still use the US dollars for invoicing. You dig? So the invoice comes in dollars, and then they jiggery-pokery around with RMB to pay the invoice, but the invoice is in dollars. An interesting point, but there's more. The true motivation behind the PRC importers to use the yuan for settlement is the existence of opportunities for exchange rate arbitrage, kind of what we were starting to talk about yesterday. But it's too heavy basically to go into. But what I'm trying to put over here is, let's do one more and see how we go. So 8C, it is not unreasonable to conclude that the bulk of yuan used in the name of import settlement actually is used to buy dollars in the CNH market, and imports in fact are still settled in dollars. I'll leave the rest of this out. The point I'm trying to put over here is that lots of people are saying that the way to go is the Chinese model of having a strong government that pushes and pulls things in the direction that it wants things pushed and pulled in, and keeps things basically under control, in the grip. But you can't keep things in the grip of a handful of people in the capital, because markets, bankers, importers, exporters, business people run rings round you and take the piss something chronic, and this is just what they're doing. There are laws laid down for this, that and the other, and great ideas coming from these handful of people that want this, that and the other. But you just can't control. It's literally herding cats. It's Adam Smith's free hand to go and do what is most beneficial for yourself. So these bankers and industrialists are doing what's best for them. And it does not often, in fact, coincide with what is best for the few people in the on the Politburo of China's leading politicians. And they are running rings around them. Right, and just in case you wanted to look more into it and didn't understand what CNH was, Finance Asia, the last link, number 9, a guide to the CNH market by Royal Bank of Scotland. But it's an important subject, obviously, China, because there are so many expectations for China. And realistically, they're not going to be met, because there's no incentive for the individuals, the bankers, industrialists, to do what the central government want them to do. There is no cohesion to roll things forward in one go. There's an idea from the Politburo that that's the way things should go, but organising it for it actually to happen is completely and utterly another thing.